Good morning. What a mess. It's crazy town here. Today on KC Auction Video Blog, we're going to be talking about, awesome. Let's do this. Dismiss that. All right, let me turn that on silent. Man, you can tell my whole schedules are out of whack right now, as are everybody else. The sound's there to mute. Let me go ahead and share this on my page there. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things. We're going to be talking about the struggles that museums are facing right now. Missouri Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art in New York City announced this week that they are going to be cutting $45 million out of their budget in response to what is going on with the pandemic. Other shows, other exhibits, other museums around the world are having major struggles and in-depth conversations about what this is going to look like for them going forward. Obviously, there's a lot to consider and unpack there. We'll get to that in just a minute. I also want to talk about Amy Absher, who's worked for us for a long time, and my wife, Stacey. But first, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the moms, mothers, grandmothers, female caregivers out there. Mother's Day is a Sunday, and it's a weird time, as we all know. But I just want to make sure that we recognized you all. Put a painting of flowers up behind me to kind of give that feeling. So thanks for watching. And let me talk with Amy real quick. Amy Absher's worked for us for a long time, 14 years now, 10, 12, something like that. She's been with us since the beginning, working from home during this pandemic, and is doing an amazing job of doing that. Raising her kids, working with her ex-husband, all those kinds of struggles that people are going through. She's also creating art. Amy is a professional artist, and she is getting prepared for showings when they can happen, and was just interviewed by the Blue Gallery about her processes and what she's going through now in regards to coronavirus, but also just in life and being an artist in general. If you're on Instagram, check out the Curvilinear Facebook Instagram page. She's also here on Facebook as well. I forget the name of her Facebook page, but Amy Absher Art. If you just Google Amy Absher Art, I'm sure things will pop up. Does amazing work. Does a lot of portrait work of women, and they're just really well done, really well executed. Have a lot of passion and depth and emotion to all of them. And it's been a joy to have her as an employee. She does an amazing job for us, and it's been great to watch her work grow as an artist as well. Of course, I wouldn't be here without Stacey, and with Mother's Day coming up in a couple of days, we're talking about honoring the women in our life who've made our lives better and have been there for us. Obviously, she does an amazing job raising our children, William and Tristan, and this is a tough time. I've been able to come to the office a fair amount during the last couple of weeks, especially, but Stacey's always taken the brunt of the educational involvement in our family, and right now that's been challenging with stay-at-home. Having to do her job and also help with the kids, and so it's been the importance of Stacey in my life has never been more clear and present than it has been in the last month and a half, 2 months or so. So happy Mother's Day to everyone out there, and hope that you find some ways to honor the women in your lives who are important to you, even during this crazy time. So let's talk about art museums and what they're looking at, what they're facing, what they're thinking about now and in the next couple of months, and also in the next several years. I mean, the pandemic isn't going anywhere. The strain seems to be mutating to a degree. There are all kinds of things going on. Absolutely, Mara. And I know you do an amazing job with your family as well. The strain isn't going anywhere. We're seeing cases rise here in Kansas City, even though we're talking about lifting the stay-at-home order. I believe that's actually under reconsideration right now. But beyond that, it's going to change how things are going forward. We're at like 15% unemployment right now, which is huge in a bad way. And that number is probably going to get worse. Attendance at museums, even if we were to open today with unemployment being where it is, you just have certain people that will not go to museums, and others are taking mandatory pay cuts. Funding is going to be different. All those kinds of things affect a museum. And I want to start with a couple of different things. Glenn Lowry, the director of the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art in New York City, MoMA. Everybody's in this world knows who and what MoMA is. He had a Zoom conference call with museum directors and professionals sometime this last week. I don't have the data written down, but they are cutting $45 million from their operating budget this year. They're having 17% fewer staff. They're going from 960 to 800 staff members. Some of those positions were unfilled and open, so they're just not even going to worry about filling them at the moment, and they're going to let go of the remainder. They took, in his words, a chainsaw to their exhibition budget, dropping that from $18 million to $10 million this year. They're expecting huge drops in attendance, obviously about a 50% decrease in attendance. Because MoMA, it obviously serves New York City and the surrounding areas, but it's an international destination. So a lot of their attendees are from around the world, and obviously international travel is going to be extremely different. Airline ticket sales are up a little bit recently, but it'll be quite some time before they get back to normal levels. And of course, travel for leisure is going to be a really interesting thing to watch over the next 6 months to a year. And he has a direct quote. He says, "You don't take $45 million out of a budget elegantly." Talking about taking a chainsaw to your budgets. Those kinds of things are truly impactful. Now, MoMA has a $1.2 billion endowment fund. They're going to be fine. They will survive. They will get through this. Partly because they have that fund, but also on April 15th, the Association of Art Museum Directors, the AAMD, which is the body that kind of governs and overlooks all of museums in the country. They have extremely rigid protocol and policies in place as far as how you can manage and leverage and work with your museum collection if you're a director of a museum. Historically, they have disallowed museums to sell artwork and use those funds for operating costs. In a rather drastic change of events, they met early on April 15th. The Art newspaper ran an article reporting on a meeting that the AAMD had, where they approved resolutions allowing museums to fund endowments and use funds from endowments and deaccession or sales of arts for general operating. The quote is they can use those funds to support the direct care of their collection. And that's a broad statement, kind of like the PPP money was a broad statement to begin with. But the AAMD, they're going to allow museums to use funds from the sales of works to go to the general operating fund, basically, for the direct care of the collection. The direct care can mean anything from repairing the building to staff to insurance to restoration or innovation, all those kinds of things that, generally speaking, lay outside the purview of funds from deaccession are now allowed with those funds. So that's a huge step to help get museums through the next 6 months, year, 2 years. Museums are businesses. They have to have money to pay all their people. A lot of museums have the support of a college, or they have the support of a huge benefactor. They have the support of major endowments. But a lot of museums, there are thousands of museums in this country. People don't realize how many museums there are, ranging from really small, fit in the size of a room I'm sitting in, to campuses like the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art here in Kansas City and MoMA in New York, and just huge expanses of real estate that cost millions and millions of dollars to run every year. And so this act by the AAMD acknowledges the difficulties that museums will have over the next 6 months, year, 2 years. Even when these things start to transition back and we get back to more normalcy in our lives, which we all know will happen at some point. That's, we just will. Our people around the world will not, we'll go back to whatever normal is. But they're allowing that. I mean, historically, the AAMD, if you sold works from your collection and did not use them for very set, defined things, they could issue sanctions, penalties. They could censure an organization. They could suspend or even expel a museum director. So this is not a small thing. This is a huge realization on the AAMD part, and I'm happy that they took that action. Whether or not you believe in the idea of a museum selling works or not, they may be in a position where they don't have the luxury of holding things in a basement. And remember, museums have well over 90% of their collections are in storage and will never be seen by the light of day. I'm on the board of the Ashby Hodge Gallery of American Art in Fayette, Missouri, and we have over 1,000 works in our permanent collection. We have space to hang about 100, 150 pieces at any one given time, and most of our exhibitions are of a current artist or of a specific type of art that we might have loaned pieces coming into us from. And so of our 1,000 plus pieces, if we show 100 a year, if we show 50 a year, and we probably show close to 100 a year of our permanent collection, that's about normal, right? And so you have to consider that the cost of storing all those works just drain your funding. They drain your power as a museum to be there in the future. You know, the museums serve more than the elite. They serve children, they serve schools, they serve all kinds of people. The Nelson here in town, and I was reading about this, the Aqua Museum in Ohio, they serve thousands and thousands of school children every year coming in to be exposed to artwork that they're not able to do right now. And it's just, there's so many things going on in the art world right now that is just crazy. That's, I'm never using that term unprecedented, but it's just never been thought of before. And then you have things like this, the Museum of Fine Arts in Ghent, Belgium. I didn't write that down. They were in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime exhibition of Jan Van Eyck, who was a Northern Renaissance artist, one of the most highly regarded Northern Renaissance artists, in line with Rembrandt and others, live from 1390 to 1441. They put together an amazing collection of works from him, from his students, and similar, that will probably never be replicated again. They have works from private collections, museums. The Vatican, I believe, even lent them a work or two for this. They were in the middle of that exhibition when they were forced to close, and the exhibition was supposed to end in April. They're having to return $3.9 million worth of unused tickets because the exhibition will not be able to go forward because of all of the logistics of a traveling exhibit. You have insurance, you have security, you have the loan documentation. When you loan a piece of work to a museum, there is a legal document associated with that. And there are costs associated with that. Transporting a 1,400, that's 600-year-old painting across the country, across the street, across the world costs money. You can't just throw it in the back of a Subaru and take it there. You've got to hire professional art handlers and crate it and store it and move it safely in a climate-controlled vehicle so that it doesn't get too hot or too cold, so that it gets ruined on the way to the museum. Then you have to do the same thing in reverse, and you pay people to hang it and produce catalogs, and you do all these things. So it's not even just a $3.9 million in ticket sales they're having to refund. They have probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in ephemeral items that they have in their gift shop that they're not going to be able to sell. Catalogs, t-shirts, mugs, pencils, whatever it might be. And they still have to pay for all these pieces to get back to the original loaner. And it's going to be a huge hit on their finances for this year for sure. And it will impact them going forward because if you set up a budget for your house, if you take out $10,000 for something today that you didn't expect, that's going to affect your budget for a while because you're trying to replenish those funds and you still have to go on with daily life. And so the same thing holds true for museums. It's truly fascinating. And as an auctioneer, I'm excited about the prospect of museums selling. As an art collector, I'm excited about the prospect of museums selling pieces from their collections that haven't seen light of day for decades, if not over 100 years in many instances. As the board member of a museum, I'm concerned that by doing so, you lessen the impactfulness, the powerfulness of a collection, and those kinds of things. Also, as a collector and as collectors at large worry about this, if museums sell even 1% of their holdings by dollar value, that is a huge volume of artworks, because the 1% rule applies to art more than any other thing in the world. We hear about $100 million paintings selling, and it makes huge splashy news. The reality is Sotheby's average price for painting is under $10,000. If you look at, there's a big online a virtual art fair going on right now, a Frieze Biennial. The vast majority of their works are under $10,000, $5,000. And so and museums are not going to sell their best works. They're not going to sell the pieces that are on permanent display. They're going to sell secondary and tertiary and come along pieces from their permanent collections that they probably didn't necessarily want to begin with, that are now just taking up space and are costing them money to secure and store and insure every year. So I fully expect to see museums taking advantage of this small sliver of time to clean out and clear out collections. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring a huge supply of artwork into the marketplace, right? If a museum that has 1,000 works determines that they have 20% of those pieces, 25% of those pieces that will never see the light of day again. They came in a donation with, there was 5 pieces that they really they're proud to have, really support their mission, but there was 20 pieces that came with it that they took because the donor said you had to take it, which is oftentimes the case. We have 3 oil paintings from Missouri landscapes, and we have 10 Salvador Dali lithographs. You got to take them all if you want any of them. Well, we take them. Museums take them. If the high-end fruit is good enough, we'll take the low-end stuff as well. And at this point, I fully expect museums to take advantage of the opportunity, the relaxing of the rules by the AAMD, to say, you know what, let's clean out the closets, let's clean out the basements. Not only can we raise funds now that we can use to help pay our staff, pay the insurance, upkeep, and security on the building, we can, going forward, say we've reduced our inventory by 20%, 25% by volume, which cuts their security, storage, and insurance costs by some fraction, by some ratio, right? So they're not only going to raise funds, they're going to eliminate costs going forward. And so it's going to be really curious and fascinating to watch how this is going to play out over time. Oh my goodness! And there's been a lot of words there. I want to tell you, the art museum part of this conversation has been covered by a lot of places: Bloomberg, New York Times, the art newspaper, ArtNet News, Artsy, and dozens of others. Almost all local newspapers and news agencies have a museum that they cover, and that is what we're going to see more and more stories about that as we go forward, and as this pandemic ebbs and flows, and we see what happens over the next weeks, months, and years as we get through this and find ways to go on. But thank you all so much for watching the KC Auction video blog. We've changed the name of Behind the Gavel with Jason to the KC Auction video blog. It just makes more sense. We talk here. I'm going to continue Behind the Gavel, but on the Behind the Gavel with Jason Facebook page. And so if you have questions or concerns or thoughts, go ahead and post them here. Send us a direct message or give us an email at info@kcauctioncompany.com. Info@ letter K, letter C, auction company spelled out.com. You can give us a phone call at 816-283-3633, 816-283-3633. Be happy to answer any questions you have about museums that we talked about today, about art, antiques, estate liquidation, auctions, anything in that realm. We'll be happy to talk about and answer either directly one-on-one or via another KC Auction video blog. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there, and stay safe and stay strong.